أخلاقنا بالحلم. اللهم نور قلوبنا بمعرفتك. اللهم أكرمنا بمعرفتك. اللهم ارزقنا الفهم عنك والبصيرة في أمرك والنفاذ في طاعتك والإصغاء إليك. Allah, oh Allah, we call upon you, pray to you, beseech you. We ask you by your names and attributes to bless us with guidance. Fill our hearts with nur, and fill our hearts with your love and the love of your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah, make us of those who have profound understanding of you and of our lives and of ourselves. And we ask you to help us navigate through every difficulty in our lives and to lead us to the path to Jannah. We ask you, Allah, to lead us to the path of your rida and to make us of those who love to journey towards you and towards your Jannah and towards your pleasure. And we ask you, O Allah, to rid our hearts of all diseases. O Allah, we ask you to purify our hearts from anything that may blind us. We ask you, Allah, to purify our hearts from the detrimental effects of whim. We ask you, Allah, to remove from our hearts the effects of whim and hawa. And we ask you, O Allah, to make us of those who have ikhlas and yaqeen, sincerity and certainty and trust and tawakkul, and to make us of those who their hearts are beautified by the beautiful attributes of worship and servitude. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ameen. Ameen. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd. Jazakumullah khair for attending today. Inshallah, we're going to be continuing with another two different topics that were explained in the book, and those two are miserliness and fear of poverty. And we're going to be speaking about poverty first because it's the doorway to miserliness. So we have miserliness, you could say is shuh, and another word to use instead of it is greed. And then we have on the other end khawf al-faqr, which is fear of poverty. And before getting into the section on fear of poverty from the book, it's very important to understand the dynamics of wealth and poverty and what they could do to us as individuals. And how does material attachment and material gain affect Iman, or does it? And in line with this, you know, there are two names for Allah Azza wa Jal that are linked with this subject. Khawf al-faqr relates to this concept of trust in Allah, tawakkul. Because ultimately, it insinuates that you have something and you're afraid that you're going to lose it. And a big reason why you're afraid you're going to lose it is because you fear the unknown. And someone who fears the unknown is someone who lacks tawakkul upon Allah Azza wa Jal. Fearing the unknown is one of those paralyzing things for people when it comes to tests of qadar. I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow or tonight. I don't know what's going to happen to this issue or that issue. I don't know what's going to become of my family or my children. I don't know what's going to become of my business. I don't know if I could trust people around me. And all of these concerns converge upon the heart, and they create a lot of stress. Now, when you might think of diseases of the heart, it might not necessarily stand out to you as a disease. This is a natural human concern. Why would fear of poverty become a disease of the heart? But this is similar to other diseases that we went over. We said, you know, a lot of these diseases, when they are in themselves natural human feelings that have exceeded their bounds, right? We said even the idea of, you know, bad assumptions. It may start off from a very innocent place. It might start off from a place that's justifiable. That you see something that triggers question marks within you about a certain person. And now you are in a position to react to these natural question marks that have developed in your heart. Are you going to act upon them in a way that's toxic? Or are you going to redirect them in a way that's positive? So that's how a lot of the diseases, manifest when we're talking about them. Like last week, we were speaking about false hopes, right? We were speaking about طول الأمل. Amal in itself is something that is central to Iman. False hopes is something that has exceeded its bounds, right? So hope in itself, an absolutely beautiful characteristics. But false hopes that's not really aided by the person's amal is something that the believer cannot accept for himself or herself, right? So a lot of these diseases, as we see, start from a place of quote-unquote innocence. And then they exceed their bounds and they become the toxic thing that they are. And the same thing with the subject of khawf al-faqr. So fear of poverty is a natural human concern. But now when I allow myself to be derailed by this fear, it could lead to a lot of negative behaviors. What could it lead to? Why could fear of poverty become a disease? Think with me. What else could it lead to? If someone fears poverty, we've already mentioned one, and that is, you guys following along with me? What were we speaking about right now when it comes to fear of poverty? It relates to what? Lack of what? Lack of tawakkul, trust in Allah. You know, and as we said, this one is so critical because this is your safeguard from the shaitan. Trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, that's your ultimate safeguard. That's why the Quran, it says at Surah Al-Nahl, it says, what? إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ لَهُ سُلْطَانٌ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. Right? The shaitan, the primary way he gets to people is by causing doubts and fears. Right? As the shaitan, he says, as the Quran describes the shaitan's works, it says, الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. Shaitan promises poverty. Again, this is min a'mal al-shaytan. So of course it's going to be a disease of the heart. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. The shaitan promises poverty, and he enjoins upon you to engage in obscenity, right? So lack of tawakkul is a very, very big thing when it comes. That's why the shaitan, he comes to the person, he makes him doubt the forgiveness of the past, doubt the success of the present, and doubts what will occur tomorrow. What will occur tomorrow? And all these doubts, they cause a whole lot of stress for this human heart. What else could come about because of fear of poverty? Tell me something else. What other disease do you see that could possibly happen when someone's very afraid that they're going to lose their possessions? They may do something what? You know, that's a very good point. Like what? Explain. They may choose the path of haram because it seems like an easier way to make more money. Yes, easy way out. Why not? I'm afraid. I need to protect myself and my kids, right? So I'm going to put halal and haram on the side for a minute. I need more money now. So I'm going to make my object of worship money, and then worship of Allah will come later. It's a very good point. Very, very good point. That happens with a lot of people. Absolutely. What else? If I'm afraid of poverty, what am I going to do? Go ahead. There you go. We became very miserly, right? I can't give, right? Because if I give, then I'm not going to have enough for myself. I can't give, and sometimes this could become a very, very delusional disease of the heart. The person finds themselves with all kinds of wealth, yet they think that they're on the verge of poverty, right? They have a nice house, nice car, they have all kinds of indulgences, but when it comes to giving, the shaitan convinces them, no, don't give. man, you can't give $1,000 right now. It's going to put you in a very tough situation. What if you're not able to make your car payments or your mortgage payments? The person's chosen to live a very expensive life. And now, like, all right, spend $100 to go out and have dinner, or 200 or 300, or spend 100 to give to charity. You're going to find the 100 or 200 to go out to have dinner is going to be a lot easier on the nafs to spend than the 100 or 200 that's spent towards giving. Right? It's, again, human nature. Right? So this is another, so we mentioned 3 big diseases that may come about because of khawf al-faqr. Right? So we said, ضعف التوكل. We said, الالتجاء إلى الحرام, lack of tawakkul, resorting to haram, and then on top of this, shuh and bukhl, miserliness and greed. These are 3 diseases. And if you were to think further, there's a lot of other things that you could think about when it comes to the effects of fearing poverty. Now there's 2 names for Allah Azza wa Jal you should remember. Remember these 2 names. They relate to the believer's philosophy and attitude towards material things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Qabid, and He is Al-Basit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the giver, and He is the denier. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Qabid, the withholder, and He is Al-Basit, the giver. Al-Basit. يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. Right? يَبْسُطُ, He gives from His rizq and from the provisions whomever He wills. So, and in fact, the believer realizes that both are actually a test. The test of giving and a test of denying. And the believer, besides that, always realizes that Allah is giving, even when he denies. You guys following along with me? Who can explain that? Allah is giving even when He denies. Go ahead. Very good. So there's actually a hikmah of Ibn Ata'illah that says this, right? رُبَّمَا أَعْطَاكَ فَمَنَعَكَ وَرُبَّمَا مَنَعَكَ فَأَعْطَاكَ. Perhaps He's given you but denied you. And perhaps He's denied you but given you. That's a way to look at it. Perhaps Allah has given you but denied you. Meaning that I might have something, but this what I have is actually a form of torment, a form of difficulty. Some people, they have certain things that they wish they never had, like money. Like money. Like children. The Quran says it. فَلَا تُعْجِبْكَ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ. Right? There's plenty of wealthy people on the surface of the earth who wish they never had money. Why? Because of their money, their heart's never at rest. You know, some of the strangest dynamics of dunya is that you will find that the person who has a ton of money counts every buck when he's giving it to someone else. And the normal person who has no money is very generous in giving it out to people. It's subhanAllah, again, nufus, because how can you become a very wealthy person? You need to be very, very aware of the in and out. And this thing could actually become very in fact, like I said, that we should not underestimate how much of a disease this could possibly become. You know, this could become something so pathological that the person is thinking of every single dollar that's coming in and coming out. And this person, some people, again, it eats away at their lives. You know, they have so much, yet they can't enjoy it. Why? Because they're thinking of the 5,000 that Fulan took, and the 10,000 that's in with Fulan, and the lawsuit that's over here, and the business the employees that he can't trust over there, and this person's life is just, you know, is very difficult. And sometimes the same thing with kids. Sometimes one of the biggest trials of life for some people is that they can't have kids. And then on the other end, one of the biggest trials of life for some people is that they have kids, right? Some people, their kids put them in their graves. Nasallahu salama. May Allah help people, right? He doesn't have kids yet. What are you talking about? No, but seriously, some people, their kids put, and you know, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Allah doesn't forget anyone. If a mother or father has to deal with all kinds of struggles in trying to make sure their children are guided and trying to help their children through difficult life situations, this will be a source of great reward for them in the akhirah. Even if in the dunya they had such difficulty, because subhanAllah, so one person sees it as a dream and a wish, another person sees it as a source of torment. And that teaches you, hey, look, the best thing that you could possibly do is trust in Allah. Don't kill yourself wishing that you had what other people had. What Allah Azza wa Jal put in your life is for a profound wisdom. Don't underestimate it. Don't throw it away. Deal with it. Learn to navigate through it. Grow through it. So, like Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. What did he say? Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, what did he say? He said about his son, إِنَّ ابْنِي مِنْ أَهْلِي وَإِنَّ وَعْدَكَ الْحَقِّ وَأَنْتَ أَحْكَمُ الْحَاكِمِينَ. He had to struggle to the last moment with his son, praying and hoping that his son would be saved. But he wasn't, right? So that's a type of test in this dunya. And then the other type of test is the test of loneliness. The person doesn't have kids. The person doesn't have family. So if you have one type of test, don't wish for someone else has, because you might think it's a great blessing, but if you had it, you'd realize how difficult it is, right? So that's and this is the prophetic disposition. The Prophet ﷺ said, you want to know the path to spiritual richness? وَارْضَ بِمَا قَسَمَ اللَّهُ لَكَ تَكُنْ أَغْنَى النَّاسِ. Right? Be content with what Allah has apportioned for you. You will be the wealthiest of people. That's true wealth. Right? As for everything else, those realities, you don't know which of these realities you are good for you and which of them are bad for you. So learn to trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. All right, so that's Al-Qabid Al-Basit. He is the one who gives and He is the one who takes. Now, there's something else that we need to understand about the subject before we go into it. So if we had to choose, which one would be better? Wealth or poverty? If we're going to choose, which one's better? Wealth or poverty? Huh? Wealth? Okay. Wealth? Raise your hand. Wealth or poverty? If you say wealth, raise your hand. Okay. If you say poverty, raise your hand. Okay, some people raise their hand for poverty. Some people, more people raise their hand for wealth. Of course, look at this. The whole point of the, yeah. تفضلي. So you want to choose in between. I want to choose what Allah chooses. Yes, in between. Yes, good. Smart choice. Look, here's the trick. The answer to this question, if someone asks you this question, what would you rather be, poor or rich, or what's better, wealth or poverty? The response to it is the question that is presented is a flawed question. We just finished discussing that what makes all the difference in these realities is the person's disposition and his attitude towards wealth and towards poverty. That's the whole, so now, for example, اليد العليا خير من اليد السفلى. How do we deal with that? Well, I'll tell you this. ومنهم من عاهد الله لئن آتانا من فضله لنصدقن ولنكونن من الصالحين فلما آتاهم من فضله بخلوا به. Right? So now here, what do we do? Can I guarantee if I have money that I'm actually going to be a giving person? You can't make that guarantee. Because there's tons of people who said, if Allah gives me, I'm going to be very generous. And the Quran says that a good portion of these people ended up becoming greedy when they're actually given what they wanted, right? So is wealth better? Well, I don't know. Maybe wealth would destroy me. Maybe wealth is going to destroy me. I won't be. Yeah, if I could guarantee, but I can't because I don't know the future. I don't know ilm al-ghayb. You know, if I could guarantee that I'm going to be a righteous person even when I have wealth, then of course, نِعْمَ الْمَالِ الصَّالِحِ لِلرَّجُلِ الصَّالِحِ. Blessed is the good wealth for the righteous person. But I can't guarantee this. And the same thing with poverty. Can I guarantee that I'm going to be a patient person if I'm tested with poverty? No, I can't. I can't guarantee that. You know, people, sometimes faqr could be a fitna for people. It distracts them to the point where they even go towards haram because of faqr and poverty. You know, and there's stories that are coming from different parts of the world that sometimes, you know, if a person can't make money because they don't have business and they don't have business know-how, sometimes they might use their body, wal-'iyadhu billah, to make money. Yes. Has it happened? Yes, it happens. Some people would even abandon their deen to make money, right? They find another, they find a mission or another faith giving da'wah in certain parts of the world, namely Africa or Syria even, right? I'm going to give you food. You want food? Come pray to Jesus. You want food? Come pray to Jesus. And if you are between two choices, eating rats and dogs, or getting a nice meal and praying to Jesus, can you guarantee that you're going to choose eating rats and dogs? You don't know. I'm not talking about poverty like we have it here, like the mild poverty where you're going to still get food, nice chicken, nice مش عارف ايه. No. We're talking about poverty that actually is killing people. People are dying from, we can't imagine that, but people are dying from poverty in certain parts of the world, right? So let's get into it a little bit more. There are certain advantages for wealth, and there are certain advantages for poverty, and certain disadvantages for both. Look at this. The hadith says, إِنَّ لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فِتْنَةٍ وَفِتْنَةُ أُمَّتِي الْمَالِ. For every ummah there is a fitna, and the fitna of my ummah is wealth. There's a hadith that says, مَا الْفَقْرُ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ. I'm not afraid for you for poverty. وإنما أخشى أن تفتح عليكم الدنيا أو أن تبسط عليكم الدنيا. I am worried that the dunya is going to be open to you the wide open, and you will fight over it like those before you fought over it, and it will kill you just as it killed them. Ya Allah, how many broken families have come about because of wealth? Right? People, wallahi, even to this day, so many stories of people fighting over inheritance, people fighting over businesses, failed partnerships that tore families apart. You know, how many problems have come about because of that? And there's another hadith that says this, إِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ قَبْلَكُمْ الدِّينَارُ وَالدِّرْهَمُ. Though that which ruined nations before you is dinar and dirham. You know what dinar and dirham? The gold coins, silver coins, money. La tulhikum, what? The greatest distraction for human beings is the thing that people love most. And what do people love most? Money, right? لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. Allah knows. وتحبون المال حبا جما. And you love money to your core. There are people who are fighting over money and they're at the doorsteps of their graves. They know that most of their life is gone. They might be even in their 70s and their 80s, and they still have the energy to fight over money. And you might say to yourself, my goodness, like, how long do you think you're going to live? You lived more than the average human being. You're 70 or 80 years old, and you still have the power to fight with your brother or your sister over money? That's the Prophet ﷺ says it. The Prophet ﷺ says it. that human beings will never be satiated. Again, the hadith says, what does it say? The hadith says, لو كان لابن آدم واديا من الذهب لاشتهى آخر, or واديان من الذهب لاشتهى ثالثا. The Prophet ﷺ says, if the son of Adam had a valley of gold, he'd want another. And nothing will fill the son of Adam and satiate him except dirt. That's the only thing that's going to satiate him. Right? So wealth, don't pay attention to wealth. ولا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم زهرة الحياة الدنيا. Here أزواج is talking about أصناف من الأشياء. يعني the pairs of things, different types of things that people aspire for. Now these are the now at this point, okay, what is this talk meant to make me hate money? No, it's not. It's not meant to do that. Now on the other end, wealth is mentioned as a big blessing, right? What are the adilla? وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Allah found you dependent and He made you independent. One of the worst things in dunya is for someone to be utterly dependent, financially, physically, emotionally. One of the worst things in dunya, one of the worst experiences in dunya, especially when you're dealing with human beings. And people, I've met many elderly people who this is their greatest fear. I've met multiple elderly people say their dua is, oh, Ya Allah, if my time, if I'm going to get old and not be able to live anymore, then I hope that my ajal would come before I lose my independence. Why? Because I don't want to be at the mercy of those around me, right? Because one of the biggest difficulties where you have to you wait for someone to pick you up, wait for someone to go to the bathroom, wait for someone to feed you, wait for someone to spend on you, كذا. This is one of the biggest fears that people going into older age have, especially when they don't see something hopeful from their children, right? إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ, right? So this concept of ghina is actually, has a lot of blessings to it too. نعم المال الصالح للرجل الصالح. The hadith says, blessed is the good wealth for the righteous man. There's another hadith that says, ما أكل أحد طعاما قط خيرا من أن يأكل من عمل يده. وإن نبي الله داود كان يأكل من عمل يده. No one has eaten anything better than what his hard-earned money, what his hard labor has earned him. No one has consumed anything more pleasant than what his hard labor has earned him. And that's what the prophets did too. He mentioned Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam here. And then we know, إِنَّكَ إِن تَذَرْ وَرَثَتَكَ أَغْنِيَاءَ خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَن تَذَرَهُمْ عَالَى يَتَكَفَّفُونَ النَّاسِ. The hadith says, for you to leave your heirs, your children, your family, to leave them independent so that they don't need to turn to others is better than leaving them in a state of poverty where they'll have to turn to others for support. All right, so those are blessings of wealth. So we see dangers of wealth, blessings of wealth. Now, what are the dangers of poverty? Look at this. This is actually something that, is very, very eye-opening. We can see this, especially from back home. If any of you guys, have ever gone back home overseas, so to say, to any of the Muslim countries where there's a lot of poverty, you'll see this, that character or poverty changes the character of people. It changes the character of people. Now, there are people, there's scary stories out there of people who are willing to sell out their own family members to make money. This happens. This happens. There's a bunch of stories like this. You would be shocked about what happens in personal people's lives. People would literally sell out their own family to make money. This is something that's big in some countries where there's a lot of social problems, where you have people who are, would be informants, to get other people in trouble and make money and profit off of people's losses and them being put into trouble. That happens. There's stories like that. People are willing to give up own family members to get citizenship in certain countries. There's stories like that too. Look at this hadith, or it's not a hadith, sorry. No, actually it is a hadith. إن الرجل إذا غرم استدان فحدث فكذب ووعد فأخلف. How can poverty change the character of people? The Prophet ﷺ said, when the individual becomes in debt, he's going to seek out more debt. إن الرجل إذا غرم استدان. He's going to need to, or I'm going to take, I owe Fulan 2,000, I'm going to take 2,000 from Fulan and try to pay off Fulan, and now I owe this other person money, and it becomes this endless cycle. And then he says that this person will inevitably speak and lie and make promises and break those promises. This shows you it could change character. That's why one of the scholars of the past, Imam Abu Hanifa, what did he say? He said, لا تستشر من ليس في بيته دقيق. Don't consult someone on religious matters if he doesn't have the basics in his home. Daqiq is wheat so that he can make bread. If he doesn't have that, don't consult him. Why? Because this person's not focused. لأنه مشتت الفكر مشغول البال. Right? People who are from Egypt can relate to this. Based on all of the conflicts that happened over there, what did people scream out and chant? What? I want bread. That's it. I just want aish. That's it. I don't care if whoever gets thrown into prison or killed or whatever happens to society, let it happen. I want رغيف العيش. Give me رغيف العيش. I am willing to think like this. You give me رغيف العيش, I'll stay quiet. That's it. Do whatever you want after that. I don't care. This is a siyasa. This is an attitude towards society. That happens about when people don't have their basic means of livelihood. It changes character, right? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ also teaches us, لا يقضي القاضي وهو غضبان. The judge cannot judge when he's angry, meaning when his temperament's off. Or when he's hungry, same thing. Because what? If he's hungry, and he's going to be emotional. Very good. And the judge cannot also be emotionally invested with people. Cannot take gifts from people. And he says that you need to have that barrier over there to maintain justice. Because if I take a gift from Fulan, then guess what? When Fulan comes to me, it's going to be hard for me to rule against him. And look at this. Look what happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. There were some of the Arabs, not all of the Arabs, by the way, to pay attention to this. It wasn't all of the Arabs that would bury their females. It was only some. And that's why you found that there were many women among the Arab tribes that lived and prospered and kada. So it's a misconception for people to think that all of the Arabs used to bury their girls. No, that's not the case. It was a practice of some people. But the Quran mentions it. Why? Don't kill your daughters from what? Fear of poverty. Because what? The boy's going to bring me money, the girl's not. She's only going to bring me hem, and she's only going to bring me problems. Look at what the hadith says. The Prophet ﷺ would seek refuge in Allah from poverty. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr wa adhab al-qabr. This is the normal hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, very known dua of the Prophet ﷺ. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from kufr and faqr, from fear, from disbelief and from poverty. Why? Because they're so closely associated. There's actually another statement that says al-faqru baridul kufr. Al-faqru baridul kufr. Poverty is a trigger point that could lead to disbelief. Now, of course, that's not for everybody. Some people, their path to Allah Azza wa Jal is Through faqr and patience upon faqr. But that shows you all of this. What does this all show you? There's positives and negatives, and it all goes back to me, my disposition. What's better for me? What is my frame of mind? Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal would give you ghina to protect you from what faqr might do to you. And sometimes Allah might give you faqr and poverty to protect you from what wealth might do to you. And that's why the best thing for the mu'min to do is to always be pleased with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for him. The Prophet ﷺ, again, would make this dua: "Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from disbelief and poverty and from the punishment of the grave." Right? So now, of course, in general, we are an ummah that's taught to always seek afiyah. Right? Seek afiyah. What's the balance between this? I know that either one could be a doorway to shar. Should I want hardship for myself? No. Don't ever wish for hardship for yourself. As the Prophet ﷺ, he teaches us, Salullah al-afiyah. Ask Allah for well-being. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ease. Because when you get difficulty, you don't know how you'll react. So, the balance between this is I am going to realize the role of my iman in controlling how I react to poverty and how I react to ghina. And I'm going to realize that ultimately, whether I have poverty or I have wealth, that the source of true wealth is what? Within me. That's the source of true wealth. Now, many people, sometimes they might gain wealth, but they won't maintain it. And if they get too attached to it, it will destroy them when they lose it. Right? Think about that. Think about that. Some people, they are blessed with money, but then different things happen that trigger the loss of their wealth. Either certain conflicts or certain economic circumstances. Again, we just went through COVID. Some people, before the COVID, they had a prosperous business. After COVID, they're hardly able to pay their bills. They're hardly able to live. They lost their business. They lost their source of wealth. Yeah. So now here the key is, how can I balance between this? I know that ultimately the goodness is not in money or in poverty. The goodness is within me if Allah Azza wa Jal blesses me. That's why لَيْسَ الْغِنَى عَنْ كَثْرَةِ الْعَرَضِ. True wealth is wealth from within. That's whether you have money or not. Right? Look at this beautiful Quranic reality. The Quran describes that there are people who are so impoverished yet so noble. يَحْسَبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَاءَ مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ تَعْرِفُهُمْ بِسِيمَاهُمْ لَا يَسْأَلُونَ النَّاسَ إِلْحَافًا. Look at this. That tells you where true richness is. There are people, look at this. There are people who have so much of the dunya, yet they are truly impoverished. Think about it. There's this hadith. It's a very scary hadith. This hadith says the following: من جعل الدنيا نصب عينيه. Whoever makes the dunya front and center, شتت الله شمله. Allah Azza wa Jal will make his affairs in disarray. And وَجَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. He'll make his poverty between his eyes. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا قُدِّرَ لَهُ. And only what has been decreed for him from wealth will come his way. That's it. He was, sometimes a person would be like, chasing after it. I need it, I want it. And you know what? The record books might show this person makes a lot of money. This person makes 200K or 300K. But for some reason, they are impoverished. Nasallahu salama. That they feel as though they don't have enough. Like for some reason, there's no barakah. A person makes 200K and they're always chasing after dunya and hardly keeping up with their bills. And then you find someone making a quarter of that, right? And then for some reason, they just feel comfortable. They feel at peace and at ease. It's a strange reality. Allahu Akbar. The rest of the hadith goes on to say, وَمَنْ جَعَلَ الْآخِرَةَ نُصْبَ عَيْنَيْهِ جَمَعَ اللَّهُ شَمْلَهُ وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. Prophet ﷺ, he says, whoever makes the akhirah his ultimate objective, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather for him his affairs, and He'll make his richness, his source of wealth, between his eyes, and what? The dunya is going to come to him against its will. وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. The Prophet, look at this again, that's the reality of faqr and of poverty and wealth. Whereas, again, we're going to go back to the ayah, right? It's about perspective, it's about attitude. It's about realizing where true wealth lies. The ayah that we said was, there are a people who an ignorant person or an unwitting person would think they are wealthy. You might look at them and they might not look impoverished to you. But Allah knows that this person hardly has anything, or in fact is deep in the negative. You know, it's a reality that يَحْسَبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَا مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ, because they don't run to ask people, they're not begging people. They have too much izzah and honor to beg other people for assistance. They have self-worth. They're not going to put themselves in a humiliating situation, right? تَعْرِفُهُمْ بِسِيمَاهُمْ لَا يَسْأَلُونَ النَّاسَ إِلْحَافًا. They don't ask anyone for anything, right? So anyway, look at this. The essence of true wealth isn't material. Whether you have money or not, don't ever think it's about the money. Especially young people, right? You're preparing yourself to get an education and a career, and then you want to work, and you want to make money. Don't ever think it's about the money. It's not about the money, right? It's about something inside you. If you feel whole on the inside, then everything on the outside is secondary. If you feel broken on the inside, then no matter what you get from the dunya, it will never satiate you. It will never satiate you. Nasallallahu salama. All right. So this is how we balance the subject of wealth and poverty. And now let's look at the section and read up on it. And inshallah, what we're going to do first is we're going to go to this book here. Fear of Poverty is on page 111. And if you could please read for us, Zakaria. Can you read the signs and symptoms? خوف الفقر.
The signs and symptoms: preoccupied with loss of wealth, constant worry, keeping bad company.
Well, that's another one that we didn't think of. So one of the signs and symptoms of this disease is you get so consumed with keeping your wealth, right? And it causes constant worry and stress and anxiety. And then the third one is it ends up causing you to keep bad company, right? And this is especially true for those people who are blessed with affluence, right? Because what does the money attract, right? And what's the word for money in Arabic? What's the word for money in Arabic? Mal. And one of the reasons why they say it's called that is, as they say, إني رأيت الناس قد مالوا لمن عنده مال ومن ليس عنده مال فعنه الناس قد مالوا. Right? They say this. Why is it called mal? Because people are inclined to it, right? He says, I see people have inclined to those with wealth and affluence. And whoever doesn't have wealth, people go away. From the poetic expression goes on to say that إني رأيت الناس قد ذهبوا لمن عنده ذهب ومن ليس عنده ذهب فعنه الناس قد ذهبوا إني رأيت الناس من فضة لمن عنده فضة ومن ليس عنده فضة فعنه الناس منفضة. Right? They say these lines. They say, hey, you know what? Gold, silver, money, these things attract. Who do they attract? they often attract the most disingenuous, fake people that exist upon this earth, right? It happens. It happens, right? This person doesn't have a single friend. He strikes gold, guess what? He's going to get a lot of friends. There's so many. It's true. People are attracted to money because they think that being around the money is going to make me of those who benefit from it. That's why people who are, it's one of the things that celebrities are haunted by. Celebrities, hardly have any friends because everyone around the celebrity is trying to eat away at their money. Please, can you give me this? I need that. Oh, I hope you could help me with this. Everyone's thinking about me, right? And that's why people who are celebrities, you might find them in the light and limelight, front and center, but they're actually very lonely people. Very lonely people. Because they don't know who they could trust. I don't know who I could trust. I've been taken advantage of so many times, right? So this is one of the things. It keeps keeping bad company, right? Even when it comes to the subject of marriage, right? There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he was sitting with some of the companions. The hadith doesn't name who. These are authentic hadith, right? But it doesn't name who, right? So the Prophet ﷺ saw a man coming in. This man had the effects of wudu, and he walked in, and they said, "Ma taquluna fi hadha?" What do you say about this person? They said to the Prophet ﷺ, this is the type of, he looked like a poor, simple person. This is the type of person, when he knocks on the doors, no one answers. وَإِذَا شَفَعَ لَا يُشَفَعَ. When he intercedes, no one cares for his intercession. وَإِذَا خَطَبَ لَا يُزَوَّجْ. Even when he tries to get married, people are like, no. Find yourself someone better, right? The doors are closed. Then someone else came in after that. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا تَقُولُونَ فِي هَذَا هذا حري إذا خطب أن يزوج وإذا شفع أن يشفع. This is the type of person that when he seeks marriage, everyone opens the door wide open. And when this person speaks, everyone listens to him, right? And if he intercedes on someone's behalf, everyone listens to his intercession. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, هذا خير من ملء الأرض من هذا. This person that you guys undermined is better in the weight of the world than this person that you guys have saw as this great person, right? So again, that's one of the things. Keeping bad company comes about because of fear of poverty, because of being a wealthy person who's afraid of poverty, right? Go ahead. Let's read the detailed ones. Go to page 113.
Preoccupied with loss of wealth. You are preoccupied with the fear of losing wealth, and as a result, you desperately cling to your money and deprive the needy and yourself of goodness, of giving for the sake of Allah. You are vulnerable to violating laws, even to the point of indulging in indecency, for the purpose of gaining or protecting personal or family profit and wealth. You compromise your religion. You delay in giving charity in order to achieve worldly gain, often out of fear of poverty or plain greed.
Yeah, and sometimes this leads to the path of great disgrace for some people. If some people get an opportunity to make 10 times the amount of their salary in a month through ways of haram, right? Now, if I just participate in illegal shipping or in the drug trade or something like that, and I could make 10 times the amount of money, all I need to do is transport these prohibited items from location A to location B, and I'll make 10 times what I would ever make from my whole salary just by doing that. Sometimes people will choose this. Or this is just an example. There are many, many other examples of fraudulent and criminal behaviors that people get attracted to, even if they're Muslim, just because it's a lucrative opportunity. All right, go ahead.
Constant worry. You grieve over an abundance of concerns and problems which are controlling you. However, none have yet materialized. You are constantly worried about your estate and its potential loss. You enjoy no peace of mind, and your life is rife with conflict, contention, and treachery.
Go ahead. Keeping bad company. Next page.
Keeping bad company, you keep the company of people of disobedience for fear of loss of wealth, by praising their actions and displaying pleasure at their condition without condemnation. You
Very
seek
good.
some material benefit.
Jazakallah khair. All right, now let's go over some of the treatments. Good opinion of Allah.
Good opinion of Allah. You have a good opinion of Allah. You realize that Allah is the provider and the source of wealth and comfort. You are connected to do good and trust in Allah. You realize that His dominion is never diminished in the least when He gives to His creation all that they need. Trusting in Allah and severing hope in others, you establish an absolute trust in Allah, and this means that you become completely independent of other things. You begin to sever all hope in what others have. You understand that your provision depends on Allah and that He has guaranteed it. So you instead occupy yourself with worshiping Him. Contentment. You do not harbor bad thoughts towards someone who is given more than you. You understand that your share of life is what is there waiting for you, and your sustenance has been preordained even before the creation of humankind. Your wholesome thoughts are expressed by your contentment with what you have, and because you do not stretch your eyes towards the assets of others. You remind yourself that the great bounty of ilm is true wealth, and that nothing can be compared to the great bounty of knowledge and intelligence, particularly material wealth.
All right, so now he's mentioning to us a lot of what we mentioned indirectly. حسن الظن بالله, التوكل على الله, الرضا بقضاء الله, contentment, trusting in Allah, good opinions in Allah. All of these are means of treatment. And in fact, when you're afraid of giving, that's when you should give, right? So, look, there's a beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Look at this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ was asked this question, Ya Rasulullah, أَيُّ الصَّدَقَةِ أَعْظَمُ أَجْرًا? Which sadaqah is most rewarding, O Prophet of Allah? So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَنْتَ الصَّدَّقَ وَأَنْتَ صَحِيحٌ شحيح تخشى الفقر وتأمل الغنى ولا تمهل حتى إذا بلغت الحلقوم قلت لفلان كذا ولفلان كذا وقد كان لفلان. Prophet ﷺ said the best charity is the one that's given when you are healthy and when you're prone to being miserly. Right? I have health, I have wealth, I have hopes, I'm afraid of poverty, I want riches. Don't wait until you're on your deathbed and then start being generous. You're going to give the donations to this person and donations to that cause and donations to another cause. No, don't do that, because at that point, you're about to abandon your wealth anyway. Once you die, it's all going to be relinquished from your ownership, right? So don't wait until you're on the verge of death and losing ownership anyway to start being generous. No, give when you're healthy and able. This is the best type of charity. So when you fear poverty, that's when you should give. And in fact, not all donations are the same. If someone has $1 million and he donates $1, it's not like someone who has 100 and donates $1. No. There's no comparison in giving when you're in need versus giving when you're very well off, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is best aware of these situations. So these are some of the treatments. Make sure that you establish ties of kin, constantly worship and make dua, keep transactions free from sin, don't resort to haram. Again, often it's a fitna. All right, I'm going to stay from paycheck to paycheck. I'm not going to get ahead, right? But if I start playing with the books a little bit and I get myself on a few government programs, I got a BMW or a Mercedes, yeah, I'm on food stamps. And Why? Because I'm cheating the government out of its money, right? And I think that's halal because, hey, they're not Muslim, right? It's okay. I could take food stamps when I know I have a Mercedes. How could you reconcile? How could you allow yourself to live a fraudulent lifestyle like that? That's what every person should take into consideration. Forget about the source of the money or the opportunity or whatever else. Oh, I pay tax. Oh, this is now. Forget about all the arguments the shaitan could convince you of to allow yourself to do this fraudulent thing. How could you allow yourself to embrace anything fraudulent when the Prophet ﷺ, one of his greatest characteristics was that he was true and he was wholesome and he was nothing but the truth. Prophet ﷺ was raw truth manifest. The Prophet ﷺ was not a liar. The Prophet ﷺ would never embrace fraudulent behavior, even if it would put him as a disadvantage. You guys know about the story of loyalty. You guys know there's two of the companions, Sayyidina Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman and his father. They did not participate with the Prophet ﷺ in the battle of Badr. They did not participate. Why? You guys know why? You know why? They were stopped by the kuffar of Quraysh and they asked them, where are you going? You're going to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? You're going to join Muhammad and his followers and you're going to stand with his army? So they said, no, we're not. We're going to Medina. We have nothing to do with the Prophet. They lied. Or, not lied, but they said what they needed to say to get out of a very tough situation. If they said, we're going to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they might have been killed or imprisoned. Right? So anyway, they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam what they said. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, Insarifa. You're not going to join us. You said what you said. You're not going to join us. Insarifa nafi lahum bi'ahdihim wa nasta'inu Allah alayhim. Leave. We're going to fulfill our covenants and we're going to seek Allah's assistance in defeating them. And you know, in Badr, they needed every single man. They needed every single person. Because there was a huge disproportion between the Prophet ﷺ and his companions and the kuffar and their supporters, right? So it shows you that the Prophet ﷺ is manifest truth. So next time someone tries to convince you that it's okay to take money, even from a non-Muslim, or for whatever reason, by fraudulent means, tell them, no, it's not okay. It's haram. It's haram to do this, right? So anyway, make sure you keep it from halal and make sure that you treat this fear with those things that he said here, building a sense of rida, building a sense of tawakkul, having husn dhan billah azza wa jal, and so on and so forth. So that's what he has in the book here. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to transition to this book and we're going to read a little bit more detail. The section's short, so we could get through it quickly. It's in my book, it's on page 41, if you have the book. If you don't, you could use the PDF, inshallah. Go ahead, read for us. It's called Fear of Poverty. No problem. By the way, as we usually do, and inshallah we're going to take questions soon through the Slido or directly, whichever one you want. If you want to ask questions, make sure you send them through the Slido or ask them directly. Inshallah, once we finish this, we'll go over some of the questions because we're almost at Maghrib time. All right? You there or no? You can't find it? Fear of poverty? Khalas, I'll read it. All right, so the next spiritual disease Imam Mawlud discusses is fear of poverty. He says, scholars have said that nurturing this fear is tantamount to harboring a negative opinion about Allah. Right? Satan threatens you with poverty and he commands you to immorality. But God promises you forgiveness and bounty. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. One of Shaitan's tactics is to keep people so occupied with fear of losing their wealth that this culminates in them desperately clinging to their money and depriving the needy and themselves of the goodness of giving for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So, that's a very interesting expression there. When I don't give, I'm not only denying the needy, I'm denying myself. I'm denying myself of goodness in my wealth. There are people who have a clear route to Jannah through ata and giving that they don't take advantage of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them an abundance of wealth that for them giving 1 or 10 or 20 will not affect them or harm them. But it might change the lives of many people if they were to give, and this could be a route to great goodness in this dunya and the akhirah. Now, this is from al-mutajara ma'Allah Azza wa Jal. If someone really wants to enter into a transaction with Allah, the best way to do it is through ata. And you'll see how Allah will always be more generous than you can ever be. That when you give, you're going to find that Allah is going to give you more. And this has been the case for many people. Many people have had this experience, that they haven't become impoverished when they gave. No. In fact, when they gave, they feel that there was so much barakah that came back to them. And that even they got the money and maybe even more back. Try it. Get into a transaction with Allah. That, oh Allah, I'm going to do this for your sake because I want you and I want your pleasure. I'm going to help someone in need. Allah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. Allah will not make your faith in vain. He's not going to make it go in loss. You know what? In fact, if you don't give, you're going to probably find a lot of reasons that come to take your wealth anyway. You're going to find, oh, the car broke down and it needs this. Oh, the house needs repairs like that. And oh, someone took my wealth because of that. And I have a ticket because of that. And you find that the wealth goes out of your ownership anyway. But if you give, trust me, you won't regret. Because you're entering into a transaction with Allah. And it will always be profitable. All right, so let's go on. Let's see what he says. As he says, a person under the spell of irrational fear is more vulnerable to transgressing laws, even to the point of indulging in lewdness for the purpose of gaining profit and wealth. Yes, this is absolutely true. God is the provider and the source of all wealth and comfort. He has promised that those who believe in Him and expend on behalf of the indigent shall receive a far more valuable return than the measure of what they spend. If one is to have fear, it should be of Allah. Don't be afraid of poverty, right? That's why the Prophet ﷺ told Sayyidina Bilal, أنفق Bilal ولا تخش من ذي العرش إقلالا. Right? He says, oh Bilal, ya Bilal, anfiq, give. And don't think that you will lose and Allah will not give you. Dhil Arsh. Don't think that Allah, the one of the throne, will not give you in return. Give. Right? So he says here, the stipulations in receiving this provision are that one have true taqwa and nurture it so that it permits one to walk the earth with dignity. Fear of poverty is an instrument of deception and a common cause of misguidance. Right? As khawf al-faqr is one of the greatest asbab and causes of dalal and inhiraf. He goes on to say, hadith states, anxiety is half of aging. Another hadith states, righteousness will lengthen your life. Right? There's another hadith that says something like that. Man ahabba an yubsata lahu fi umrih. Don't think that doing acts of goodness are going to take away from you. No, they're going to add to your value. In fact, they'll increase the barakah of your wealth and your health and your life and your livelihood. Right? So he goes on to say this. Look, fear of poverty. Imam Mawlud ties fear of poverty with a kindred illness whose carrier is called mudahin in Arabic. It is a person who uses his religion as a means of increasing his worldly condition. Right? This is another disease. We didn't talk about this disease. Mudahana. Right? I'm afraid of poverty, so I'm going to be fake, and I'm going to, I guess you could say, rub the back or the shoulders of someone who I hope to get something out of. I'm going to be disingenuous. I'm going to, try to seek means of personal gain through being fake with others. So that's what mudahana essentially is. In the Quran, Allah exposes the disbelievers among the Quraysh who tried to make deals and compromises with the Prophet ﷺ in an attempt to make his religion a means to tend to their worldly affairs, right? وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. What is he saying here? They wished that you would just sort of play along with them, right? You play along with us, you help us out, we'll help you out. You do us a favor, we'll do you a favor back. وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. Mudahana is one of the sick diseases of the heart that causes people to be fake and disingenuous in their words and in their treatments of others. The cure for fear of poverty is to have husn al-dhan billah. As Allah says, as the Quran says, لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. I have husn al-dhan billah. I'm giving not for you to give me back. I'm giving not, this is not really easy to have this attitude towards things. I'm giving not to get anything back. Human beings by nature, when they do something good, they expect something back. For me to get to that point where, khalas, I'm just going to do it lillah, and even if you treat me bad, I'm not going to wait for anything in return. Right? No, it's really hard. It's really, really hard on the nafs. I gave this person something, and they didn't return the favor. They were bad, they were mean, they weren't good in themselves. And they weren't appreciative. Right? I don't want to do it anymore. But when I realize that I'm doing that, لا نريد منكم جزاء, I'm doing this for myself, and I'm doing this for my akhirah, I'm doing this for Allah. I'm in a transaction with Allah. You just happen to be the person that's in the way of that. That's a high level of iman. That's what we should be aspiring for. It's a high level of iman. It's not easy to get there. No one's claiming that that's easy. Especially when you see someone, you're dealing with someone who you feel doesn't deserve it. This person doesn't deserve it. But if you look at it like that, like these two ayahs tell you, إِنَّا لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. يعني المعاملة مع مين؟ مع الله عز وجل. معاملتي أنا مع Allah, my dealing, my transactions with Allah, and you happen to just be in the way of that. That's it. So this is the treatment for it, he says here. People who harbor good thoughts about their provider deflect the bad whispers about him and the subtle provocations that create irrational fear. So this is again a means to cure greed and cure fear of poverty and cure a whole lot of things. Lack of tawakkul means to cure yourself also from irrational fears and negative attachment to worldly things as well. So it's 8 o'clock now, and we have about 12 minutes left until Salah. So we'll spend the rest of the time in questions. Do we have anyone who wants to ask a direct question? Anyone wants to ask a direct question? Let's look at the Slido then. It says, the first question here, how much charity should be giving out and how often? Is there a specific percentage based on your income? So look, we have sadaqah and then we have zakah, right? Sadaqah and zakah. Sadaqah is something that you're encouraged to give. It's tatawwu', right? It's not faridah. It's not the faridah in Islam for the person in their finances is their zakah. That's what you have to give. And there's a way to calculate zakah depending on what you're talking about. You could be talking about your personal money, and in that case, that's zakat al-mal. We're going to give 2.5% of that. You could be talking about your businesses and your merchandise and and what relates to this is zakat urud al-tijara. There's a special way to calculate it. It has that needs a class and a course, a lot of detail. But your required amount of giving is from your personal money is 2.5% if you're someone who has nisab and you maintain it for a year, right? Nisab is around $5,300. It's 85 grams of gold. And if you have that minimum amount for a year, then you're considered someone who's well off. You're considered someone who's well off. Not that you have to have that exact money, but you can't dip beneath the threshold. So if you maintain the minimum threshold for a year, you're considered ghani. And in this case, you need to give 2.5% of what you have at the time of giving zakah. So that's what's required in your wealth. If you have businesses, then there's a different calculation for zakah for that. And there's a lot of other details. You need to learn ahkam al-zakah. It's min furud al-ayn. It's a fard ayn to learn about zakah. I need to dedicate time to learn the ahkam so that I make sure that I'm fulfilling my responsibilities. Are there any other obligations in your money? There can be, depends. So for example, if your parents are elderly and they're not able to provide for themselves, it is, this is min al-nafaq al-wajiba ala al-walidain. This is from the obligatory allowance for the parents if they cannot provide for themselves or they cannot maintain their sustenance. The same thing is nafaq al-wajiba upon the husband towards his wife and towards his children. Right? So these are some obligations in your wealth. You want to ask a question? What do you mean? Meaning exception to excuse her from zakah? No, if she has that, if she meets the conditions, meaning that even a child, like say if I have a child, this child inherited $10,000 and it's in a bank account for them. They're only 5 years old. Do I have to pay zakah from this money? Yeah, I do. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, invest the money of the children so that it's not eaten away by zakah. Any wealth that reaches nisab and is maintained like that needs to be given, regardless of the person, the carrier's circumstance. Because it's a minimal amount of giving. You're talking about $250 for every $10,000. That's nothing. It's you give 10 times more than that for taxes. Taxes you're given 30% of your money for taxes. A huge exorbitant amount, especially if you're single and you're working, right? And you make a lot of money. So zakat 2.5%. If you have 100,000, you're only talking about $2,000, $2,500. It's nothing. Right, so Allah alam, yeah. All right, so there's another question here. Yes. Of course. If it reaches nisab. Of course. Yes. If it reaches nisab, which is 5,300, and it fluctuates, but depending on the price of gold, yani. Might be 5,000 sometimes, or less than 5,000 by a little bit. And muhim, you need to keep on following the market each year to see if you have to pay zakah. Yeah, you have to pay zakah for it. Yeah. If you're taking care of the wealth of a child, you pay what you're required to do is pay zakah from his money or her money. If you want to pay zakah on their behalf so that you don't take from their money, you could do that. There's nothing that's haram about that, But al-muhim, zakah needs to be given for that money. Okay? But it needs to be separate of your money. You can't put them two together. Okay? Yes. Yeah, you want to ask a question? Yes. Then it's going to be eaten away by zakah. Of course. Yeah. So that's why the advice of the Prophet ﷺ says, التجر في مال اليتيم حتى لا تأكلها الصدقات. But if you don't التجر فيها, then ستأكلها الصدقات. لأنه الزكاة واجبة فيها. This is من حقوق الفقراء. If you have 100,000 on the side for your child's college, this 100,000 is a sign of ghina, even if it's for a certain cause. Until it's paid for that cause, if it's just sitting there, you need to pay zakat for this. Yeah. Tamam? You pay it retroactively. Even if your child's 25 and you didn't pay zakat for the past 25 years, you're going to calculate zakat for that. So again, like say if you had 100,000 on the side for your child. Now, of course, it would be like extremely, like a lot of people take this into consideration today, especially with investment just being as easy as opening an app and khalas, I'm going to invest the money, halal investments. I even have halal investment options, right? I just go to like Wahid Invest, ولا Amana, ولا مش عارف إيه. I'm just going to invest the money so that it doesn't stay stagnant, But if I choose to leave $100,000 in the bank or in a trust fund or whatever, because when this kid grows up, they're going to go to school, then again, you're going to need to calculate zakah for each of these years. So 1 year would be 2,500. Of course, now it's going to continue to be depleted, so that you'd calculate that. And this is when it was whole, it was 2,500. It's going to become less and less the more it becomes less. So you're going to find that ultimately, it's not going to go down to zero, even if you're talking about 20 years. You might lose 20,000 of that that was meant for zakah after 20 years, but that's because zakah wasn't paid. Yeah. Yes. No, yeah, maybe you misunderstood. So we have mal that is qabil lin-nama, mal that has the opportunity to increase, and wealth that carries its value. So what's something that doesn't have the opportunity to increase? I spent $50,000 on buying a car. Am I going to pay zakah on the car that I have? Of course not, because this is for personal ownership. The more I drive this car, the more miles I put on it, it's going to what? It's going to be consumed. It's going to lose its value. I'm not going to, and this is just for me, personal enjoyment, right? But if money stays as money, then of course it's going to maintain its value. I need to pay zakah on money. Right? This is zakat al-mal, zakat al-naqdain. This goes under zakah of gold and silver, because money follows that ruling. Yeah. Go ahead. تفضلي. يعني إذا هو صرف الفلوس على شراء سيارة أو بيت. طبعا. لا انت مش فاهمه. اذا انت عندك مليون طبعا حتدفعي الزكاه غصبا عنك يعني of course يعني we don't look so just so everyone understands يعني we don't look at what you're saving the money for يعني you're saving it to buy a house or buy a car ملناش دعوه. It doesn't matter. Do you have نصاب معناها انت في الفقه غنيه يبقى ادي الزكاه. لأنه في ناس يعني بتلاقي 3/4 الأرض بتمنوا إنه يكون عندهم نصاب يعني. لا مش لا هو في الفقه يعتبر فايض عليك. ليش؟ لأنه في البنك يعني وأي فلوس في البنك حتى لو لهدف أساسي. التعليم هدف أساسي صح؟ بس لو حنحسب إنه okay I need to wait till I have a house and then a car and then I need to put through education يبقى مين اللي حيدي الزكاة؟ يعني حتلاقي الدكتور يطلب منك زكاة. أنا فقير والله لسه بحوش لبيت، أنا عايز بيت فيلا $1,000,000 يعني وما عنديش، أنا فقير يعني ادوني زكاة. ينفع كده؟ طبعا لا. لا بس مش هيك. If you have nisab, then you have to pay zakah. Right? If you have nisab $5,000 or more for a year, معناها, and it's very little. Again, it's very little unless you have a lot of money, or unless there's ihmal. وعمر طويل مضى ومش you're not paying zakah. يعني هذا الإهمال بيرجع لصاحبه. أما الزكاة بحد ذاته is very little. $5,000, talk about $125, right? Right? Zakah, right? جزاكم الله خير. مستعجلين علينا ولا إيه؟ جزاكم الله خير. It's time for iqama now. Inshallah, we're going to stop the class here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.